When Vice President J.D. Vance faced Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez inside Room Hart 219, neither the cameras nor the crowd knew they were about to witness the most devastating 86 minutes in modern political history. What would the vice president know about working people? 11 seconds of silence followed. Then came 3 words. I was 21. The Marine did not blink. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not know it yet, but her trajectory had 86 minutes left. Her device would betray her. The photograph concealed in his jacket would halt her momentum. The text message from M would be broadcast on every screen by sundown. Tuesday morning, Hart 219. America was about to watch a highly constructed image meet a resolute veteran. She is mid-sentence. The room is packed. 3 C-SPAN cameras are rolling. Her smartphone rests face up on the witness desk. Her hand reaches for the water glass. The screen lights up. The C-SPAN 3 Zoom catches the notification before her staffer can intervene. The message reads, "Stop talking. Evacuate." He has the emails. M. The staffer lunges. 8 seconds pass. The whole country sees it. Vance does not look at the glowing screen. He opens the leather notebook. The first page is completely blank. The hearing has been underway for 11 minutes. The hearing began precisely at 9:03 a.m. 3 C-SPAN cameras, 212 seats, every single seat occupied. The featured witness was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The subcommittee convening was the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. The hearing title, printed boldly on the placard at the witness table, read, "Hidden Money in American Politics, a Decade of Progressive PAC Irregularities." The Federal Election Commission complaint regarding the Justice Democrats PAC had sat dormant for 6 long years. In February, a federal grand jury had been impaneled in Washington. In March, her former chief of staff, Saikat Chakrabarti, had been granted immunity in exchange for his full cooperation. By April, every political reporter who covered campaign finance knew a major revelation was approaching. She had volunteered to appear. Her communications team had pushed her to testify, directly overriding the objections of her legal counsel. They had assured her this would be her ultimate opportunity. They had drilled her on the specific line that would set the tone. She delivered that exact line at 9:07 a.m. She lifted her eyes from her prepared opening statement. She looked directly across the dais. "And I want to address the elephant in the room," she stated. "The Vice President of the United States is a man who wrote a memoir about Appalachian poverty, then sold it to Hollywood for several $1,000,000, then took venture capital money from Peter Thiel, and now sits in judgment of working-class women. I would like to know, before any questions begin today, what would the Vice President know about working people?" The progressive activists stationed in the gallery applauded loudly. 3 Sunrise Movement volunteers stood up in solidarity. A reporter from a left-leaning podcast network nodded slowly in agreement. Vice President J.D. Vance, 41, did not immediately respond. He had been seated at the dais since 8:47 a.m. A leather notebook rested in front of him, entirely closed. A single manila folder lay beside it. A Marine Corps tie pin sat below his second button. A small silver medal of Street Michael hung on a chain at his collar. He had not checked his phone once. He had not chatted casually with the subcommittee chairman. He had not smiled. 11 seconds passed. The applause slowly died out. The Sunrise Movement volunteers sat back down. Vance turned one page of the leather notebook. The page was blank. He turned another page, which was also blank. He looked up. He spoke for the very first time in 26 minutes. 3 words. I was 21. He took a measured breath. He continued in the flat, steady register he would maintain for the next 86 minutes. In Iraq, Combat Correspondent, 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing, $1,200 a month before taxes. I was working class then. I have been working class my whole life, up until the exact moment a publisher bought my book in 2016. You were 29, Congresswoman, when you won that primary against Joe Crowley. By the time you won, you had been a paid Justice Democrats organizer for 2 years. The bartender story makes a better book. The public record shows you stopped tending bar in 2017. You ran for Congress in 2018. The bar was the brand. The brand was the campaign. 3 seconds of heavy silence. Her lips parted. The rapid pivot came exactly as rehearsed. That is exactly the kind of personal attack on a Latina woman from the Bronx that proves my point. The vice president cannot answer for his policies, so he attacks my biography. This is what the opposition does. They demean, they dismiss, they demand that women of color justify our existence, while wealthy white men, with venture capital money, sit in. I am not done. Congresswoman, she stopped. He had not raised his voice. He had not changed his tone. But she had stopped. For 7 years, the political establishment had told America that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez represented the ultimate future. The future was a working-class waitress from the Bronx who would name the billionaires in 500-character social media captions. The future was the bartender who would tax the rich. The political apparatus had purchased this brand at considerable expense. They had distributed it on every major platform their consultants advised. They had defended it for 7 years against every fact check, every ethics complaint, and every primary challenger. The brand had been a highly effective brand. The brand was currently sitting in a witness chair at Hart 219 on Tuesday morning, and the brand was about to discover that the veteran across the room had spent the last 26 minutes simply counting. Vance picked up the manila folder. He set it on the table. He did not open it yet. Congresswoman, the 14th of February 2019, Amazon announced it was withdrawing its second headquarters from Long Island City, Queens. You tweeted at 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time. The tweet read, and I am quoting the public record, "Anything is possible." Today was the day a group of dedicated, everyday New Yorkers and their neighbors defeated Amazon's corporate greed. Do you stand by that statement today? AOC straightened in her chair. Her communications director in row 2 gave a small, reassuring nod. This was familiar ground. They had prepared for this specific exchange. Absolutely. The Amazon deal would have devastated the community of Long Island City. It would have displaced working families. It would have given a trillion-dollar corporation $3 billion in tax breaks, while public schools went critically underfunded. I am proud of what we did. The community made its voice heard. Vance finally opened the manila folder. There was exactly one piece of paper inside. He lifted it. He did not show it to the cameras. He set it flat on the table, positioned where only he and the C-SPAN 3 zoom lens could read the text. He spoke the first number, 27 billion. The room collectively understood that something significant had just begun. If you have made it this far into the hearing narrative, hit that like button right now. This is the silence the networks will avoid airing tonight. Subscribe before this moment gets buried in the algorithm. The next number is worse than the first one. 27 billion, Vance stated. That is not Amazon's number. That is the New York City Independent Budget Office's 10-year economic impact projection for the Long Island City headquarters. It is the number your own city's controlled fiscal analysts produced. It is the undeniable public record. He looked at the single sheet. He read again. $2.7 billion in city and state tax revenue. That is also the IBO number, not mine. He turned the page on his leather notebook. The second page was also blank. He used it as a simple placeholder. He continued, "Average salary of the jobs Amazon committed to bring to Queens, $150,000 per year. 25,000 of those jobs. The IBEW Local 3, which represents 18,000 electrical workers across the 5 boroughs, had signed a memorandum of understanding for 1,200 union construction positions during the site build-out phase. That specific work went to Nashville. The union positions in Nashville pay less, are non-collectively bargained, and were filled by workers who had to relocate from entirely out of state." He stopped reading. He looked directly at her. "Congresswoman, the Community Board of Long Island City voted to strongly support the deal. The Queens Borough President supported the deal. The City Comptroller supported the deal. The polling conducted by Quinnipiac in March 2019 showed that 71% of New York City residents supported the deal. Your own constituents, broken out by district, supported the deal at 63%. You opposed it on behalf of a community that actively wanted it. AOC went for her rehearsed rapid pivot. Polling does not determine economic justice. The deal would have accelerated gentrification. It would have priced working families entirely out of Long Island City. Amazon is a company that has crushed unions everywhere it operates, allowing them into our community without. Congresswoman, take a breath." She stopped. The room was watching her now in a way it had not been watching her before. The progressive activists in the gallery had stopped their applauding 15 minutes ago. The Sunrise Movement volunteers were anxiously checking their phones. The reporter from the left-leaning podcast had stopped nodding. In the second row of the gallery, a black man in his late 30s stood up. He was wearing a navy blue jacket with the IBEW Local 3 logo prominently embroidered on the chest. He was holding a folded sheet of paper in his left hand. A Capitol Police officer positioned near the gallery entrance took 2 steps forward and reached for his radio. Vance raised his right hand. The officer stopped immediately. Vance spoke to the man directly. "Sir, state your name for the record." The man's voice was steady, but it shook slightly on the consonants. "Marcus Williams, IBEW Local 3, Brooklyn, New York. I am black. I am a Democrat. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I voted for Joe Biden. I voted for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2018. My wife was pregnant with our 3rd child when Amazon announced Long Island City. I was on the contractor list for the site work. I lost 3 years of solid work because of what she did. My oldest son is 6. He has never seen me on a job site close to home. I drive to Pennsylvania on Mondays, and I come home on Fridays. I am here because she will never come to my house and look my wife in the eye. So I came to hers." He sat back down. The room did not move. Vance let the weight of the moment sit for 4 full seconds. "Thank you, Mr. Williams." AOC tried to recover her footing. "Mr. Williams, I am so sorry for what you have experienced. The economic policies of this country have failed working families for 40 years. The corporate model that Amazon represents." Mr. Williams did not work for Amazon, Congresswoman. She stopped. He worked for the IBEW. He was scheduled to work for a contractor that was scheduled to be hired by Amazon. His wages would have been negotiated by his union. His benefits would have been negotiated by his union. His retirement would have been protected by his union. The deal you defeated was a massive opportunity for organized labor that organized labor actively wanted. Local 3S leadership wrote you a letter in February 2019 asking you to reconsider. You did not respond to that letter. I have the letter. He did not pull the letter out. He simply mentioned that he possessed it. The Bronx Borough President's office had sent a letter that exact same week. So had 4 city council members. So had the Queens Chamber of Commerce. So had the African American Real Estate Professionals of New York. So had the United Federation of Teachers. None of these letters had ever been answered. The political apparatus had spent 7 years explaining that AOC uniquely represented the working class, while virtually every working-class institution in her own city had been desperately begging her to read its mail. The unfolding commentary did not need a narrator to deliver it. The narrator only needed to describe what was physically visible in the room. In row 4 of the press section, 2 press aides quietly closed their laptops. A staffer for a New York representative, who had publicly endorsed AOC for re-election, began rapidly typing on her phone. The text would later be leaked to the press. It read, "We need to walk this back right now." The communications director in row 2 stopped scrolling entirely. She put her phone face down on her thigh. A reporter from a progressive magazine, whose entire career had been built on defending the caucus, stopped taking notes. He sat with his pen suspended above the notebook. He was looking directly at Marcus Williams, who was looking up at the ceiling, crying without making any sound. Vance turned another page in the leather notebook. The third page was also completely blank. "Congresswoman, the one sheet has done its work for now. Let me ask you something I want you to really think about before you answer. The 25,000 jobs you defeated. The $2.7 billion in tax revenue that did not come. The 1,200 union positions that went to Nashville. The community that wanted the deal at 71%. Was any of it worth it? Did anything you replaced that opportunity with come close to making those numbers whole?" Silence. 8 seconds. She did not answer the question. She looked at her staffer. The staffer looked at her phone. The phone did not light up. For 7 years, a generation of millennials had been told that they were the future. They were not. The Bronx was the present. Queens was the present. Brooklyn was the present. And the present was currently sitting in row 2 of Hart 219, wearing an IBEW Local 3 jacket and waiting for an answer that was simply not going to come. Vance closed the manila folder. He did not put it away. He set it back on the table. He turned another page. The 4th page was not blank. "Now, Congresswoman, about the 12 years comment. Comment Amazon below if you remember what 25,000 jobs means to a working family. The next chapter is even harder. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the networks will not show you this. This is the reality the algorithm wants buried." The chamber monitor flickered on at 931 a.m. The technician had been instructed to cue a single, specific clip. The clip was exactly 43 seconds long. It had been recorded in January 2019 at an MLK Now event in Manhattan. The speaker was a freshly elected congresswoman from New York's 14th District. She was wearing a bold red blazer and red lipstick. She was speaking passionately into a handheld microphone. The room watched the clip play. "The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is, how are we going to pay for it?" The clip ended abruptly. The chamber monitor went completely dark. Vance let the silence run its course. He took a breath. "Year 7, Congresswoman. The world is still here. The Atlantic Ocean is still there. The Pacific is still there. Manhattan is still above water. The Bronx is still on the map. And the Bronx is significantly poorer than it was when you said this." He read from the leather notebook. "Zip code 10451, Mott Haven, the South Bronx. Your district. 31% of households are unable to pay their utility bills, the highest energy poverty rate in all of New York State. The Census American Community Survey 2024 data, the most recent available. That is not a partisan number. That is the United States Census." He turned the page smoothly. In the 7 years since you said the world would end, this Congress, with your vocal support and your vote, passed the Inflation Reduction Act. The federal government has spent $1.6 trillion under that act on green energy subsidies, electric vehicle tax credits, battery manufacturing loan guarantees, and renewable infrastructure. The Congressional Budget Office now projects total IRA spending could exceed $2.5 trillion by 2034. He read the next number in the exact same cadence. In the same 7 years, the average household electricity bill in your congressional district rose 41%. The Federal Energy Information Administration data, not a think tank. The Department of Energy. Your constituents are paying twice for a transition that has not actually happened. They are paying once in federal taxes that go directly to green subsidies. They are paying again on their monthly Con Edison bill. They are paying a third time when the cost of every single product they buy reflects the higher cost of energy used to make it. You sold them a deadline. You delivered them a utility bill. She tried to fight back immediately. Her communications team had thoroughly prepared her for this angle. They had given her one strong counter-argument. She delivered it. The IRA created 230,000 clean energy manufacturing jobs in this country in 3 years. Most of those jobs are in red states, Mr. Vice President, in Georgia, in Tennessee, in Ohio, in your own state. The Honda EV plant in East Liberty employs 1,600 workers at an average wage of $92,000 per year. The transition is undeniably working. You are cherry-picking one zip code to attack a massive generational achievement. Vance let her finish completely. He waited 4 full seconds after she stopped speaking. I was at the Honda plant in East Liberty in November, Congresswoman. I spent 3 hours there. I shook the hand of every single shift lead. Those are undeniably good jobs. Those workers are not your constituents. The jobs you helped create are in the districts you do not represent. The bills you raised are in the district whose name is proudly on your office door. That is not policy success. That is policy displacement. He paused. He looked around the room. Then he said something the room had not anticipated. He said it quietly. You sold your generation a deadline. You delivered them a utility bill. The line was not meant for AOC. It was meant for the audience. Some of the audience was sitting in the gallery. Most of the audience was watching from kitchens, break rooms, and parked cars across America. The audience had been told for 7 years that climate change was an impending apocalypse that justified every cost, every regulation, and every restriction on the working economy. The audience had been told that the people raising their monthly bills were simultaneously saving their lives. The audience had been told that the immense cost was worth it because the cost was urgent, because the world was ending. The world was not ending. The bills were very real. The transition was happening in select areas and being paid for by every other state. The Marine had just articulated this out loud on live television. In the gallery, a young woman wearing a green Sunrise Movement t-shirt stood up. She did not yell. She did not protest. She simply pulled the t-shirt off over her head. She was wearing a plain black tank top underneath. She folded the green shirt carefully. She placed it on the seat. She walked out of the room without looking at anyone. The motion was caught perfectly by the C-SPAN 3 camera. It became its own viral clip by lunchtime. The Sunrise Movement had been founded in 2017 to aggressively push the Green New Deal. AOC had been their most prominent face. The young woman in the tank top was named, as the C-SPAN graphics team would later determine, Hannah Lemieux. She was 23 years old. She had volunteered for the campaign in 2018 when she was just 15. She had stayed on the mailing list for 7 years. She had ridden a bus from Boston that morning. She had paid for her own ticket. She would never volunteer for the brand again. In the second row of the gallery, 3 staffers exchanged nervous glances. One of them began typing rapidly on her phone with both thumbs. The text she sent to her boss, a sitting House member from California, read, "We need a statement out by noon. She is finished." A Capitol Police officer at the back of the room received a brief instruction in his earpiece. He listened intently. He nodded once. He did not move. Vance turned the page in the leather notebook. The next page had a single line written in his own handwriting. He did not read it aloud. He looked at it, then he looked up. "Congresswoman, about the dress. If you remember when they told you the world was ending in 12 years, share this video. Send it to the young person in your life who was told to be afraid. Year 7. The world is here. The bill is in the mailbox. Subscribe so you do not miss what happens next." He pulled a printed document from beneath the manila folder. The document was 26 pages long. It had a navy blue cover sheet. The cover sheet read in plain federal typography, "House of Representatives Committee on Ethics Report on the matter of Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The 25th of July, 2025. He did not hold it up for the cameras. He held it where he could easily read from it. This is the bipartisan report from the House Ethics Committee. The committee included 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans. The vote on the final findings was unanimous. The report was made public on July 25th of last year. I am going to read directly from the committee's own conclusion. He found the specific page. He read carefully. The committee finds that Representative Ocasio-Cortez accepted impermissible gifts in connection with her attendance at the 2021 Metropolitan Museum of Art Costume Institute Benefit Gala. Specifically, the committee finds that the dress, accessories, and admission for the representative's fiancé were provided at substantially below fair market value and that the representative did not remit full payment for these items in a timely manner. He looked up from the document. The committee ordered you to pay $2,983.28, the fair market value of the dress, the shoes, the handbag, the jewelry, the hair styling, the makeup, the car service, and the admission for your then-fiancé came to $3,700. You paid $1,000. You paid that $1,000 in March 2022, a full 6 months after the event, and only after one of the designers threatened to file a public complaint. He returned to the printed report. The committee notes that the dress was originally offered to the representative at a rental rate of $1,300. After her attendance was confirmed and her staff communicated the projected media value to the designer, the rental rate was massively reduced to $300. The committee concludes that this reduction constituted an impermissible gift under House Rule 25, Clause 5. He looked up again. The dress said, "Tax the rich." The ticket to the gala cost $35,000. The seat was paid for by the rich. The deep discount on the dress was given to you by the rich. The car service was given to you by the rich. The investigation took 4 years, Congresswoman, because no member of your own party would file a formal complaint. The complaint was finally filed by an independent watchdog group. The investigation was conducted by your own colleagues, including 6 from your party. They concluded exactly what I just read to you. I did not say this. They said this. She tried desperately to pivot. The pivot was visible. The pivot was familiar. Her staff had prepared her extensively for this exact question. This story is 4 years old. It was a misogynistic political attack on a woman of color who dared to bring economic justice to the gala of the incredibly wealthy. The committee found no intentional wrongdoing. The committee found you accepted impermissible gifts, he interjected smoothly. She stopped. The committee found you delayed payment by 6 months. The committee found you paid only after being threatened with a formal complaint. The committee was unanimous. The committee was thoroughly bipartisan. I am quoting their official findings. You can argue with them. You cannot argue with me, because I am only reading what they officially wrote. He set the report down. You wore tax the rich. On a dress the rich heavily subsidized for you. That is not hypocrisy. That is the entire business model. The tone had not shifted. The voice had not raised. The Marine had not stood up. He had simply, for the second time, made the audience say out loud what the audience had been quietly thinking for 4 years. The audience was transfixed. Senator Johnson, the chairman, leaned forward in his chair. He spoke for the very first time in 23 minutes. Mr. Vice President, the subcommittee has invited a second witness who has flown in this morning. Would you like to call her at this time? Yes, Mr. Chairman. A small Hispanic woman in her early 60s walked slowly from the back of the gallery to the witness table. She wore a black cardigan over a modest cream blouse. She carried a small leather handbag in both hands. The subcommittee clerk pulled out a chair for her. She sat down directly beside AOC, who had not been asked to move. She was sworn in. Her name was Maria Elena Vasquez. She was 61 years old. She lived at 1287 Westchester Avenue, the Bronx, New York, in apartment 3B for 47 years. She had operated Vasquez Mini Market on the ground floor of her own building. Her husband, Rafael, had opened the store in 1977. He had died in 2019. She had run the store entirely alone through the pandemic, through the disruptions, through the supply chain collapse, through the rising rents, and through the construction noise of the new luxury building across the street. She had run the store until November 2024. She spoke in Spanish through a professional interpreter. My store was closed in November of last year. I want to explain exactly why. The interpreter relayed the message. Vasquez continued. The New York City Local Law 154 required all new commercial buildings to have all-electric stoves and ovens after 2024. My building was old. My equipment was older. My freezers were from 1998. The consolidated Edison electricity rate went up 41% in 3 years. I could not afford to replace my equipment for all electric. I could not afford the new bills if I did. The landlord raised my rent 23% in 2023. He said the building needed retrofits for the new green construction code. I did not have the money. My son lives in Florida. My daughter lives in Texas. I am alone. The store made $42,000 last year. I paid myself $19,000. I closed in November. She turned her body slightly. She looked directly at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The interpreter relayed the next words. I voted for you 3 times. My grandchildren voted for you. My husband Rafael voted for you in 2018 before he passed away. I read about your dress in the news. The dress cost more than $3,000. The ticket cost $35,000. My store made $42,000 last year. We did not vote for the dress, Senora. We voted for the bartender. The bartender never came. The interpreter's voice was perfectly steady. Maria Elena Vasquez's hands were not. The room was completely silent. The C-SPAN cameras held tight on the witness table. The communications director in row 2 had gone visibly pale. AOC herself had not moved. Her right hand was resting on her water glass. The glass was entirely full. She tried to recover her posture. Senora Vasquez, I am so deeply sorry for what your family has experienced. I have always. You have not seen. The interpreter interrupted, the voice not changing tone. The room understood the line, did not need translating. "Thank you, Mrs. Vasquez," Vance said respectfully. "You may step down whenever you are ready." She did not step down immediately. She sat. She watched Vance read one more document. It was a printed page, one paragraph on official parish letterhead. "This is from Father Miguel Rodriguez. He serves St. Anthony of Padua Parish in the South Bronx. He sent this statement to my office yesterday. It is 2 paragraphs. I will read one," he read aloud. "The Congresswoman has performed her faith for the cameras and abandoned her parish. She has not attended our Mass in 3 years. She has not visited our food pantry, which feeds 1,100 families a week, in 5 years. Her staff confirms she is unavailable. The Bronx is not unavailable. We are here. We are waiting. We have been waiting for some time." He set the page down. The cascade was no longer cascading. The collapse was complete. 2 Democratic staffers in row 3 stood up together and swiftly left the room. A reporter from the New York Daily News quietly drew a heavy line beneath a phrase in her notepad. AOC's communications director closed her laptop completely and placed both hands firmly on her knees. In the 3rd row of the gallery, a young woman who had been wearing a hijab in solidarity for the entire morning removed it slowly. She folded it. She placed it on her lap. She was not Muslim. She had worn the hijab as a gesture of support for the coalition of identity-based politics. She had worn it because the brand had told her to wear it. The brand was no longer instructing her. She did not know what to do with her hands. The phone face up on the witness desk, since 9:03 a.m., did not light up again. The staffers had stopped sending text messages 40 minutes ago. They had been told by their attorneys that the messages were actively being captured. They had stopped helping. A small notification preview appeared on the iPhone screen at 9:51 a.m. The preview, clearly visible to the C-SPAN 3 Zoom, read, "Draft statement, resign, final draft attached." The staffer next to AOC reached over urgently. She turned the phone face down. She did this in full view of 3 live cameras. Senator Gallego, the Hispanic Marine combat veteran from Arizona, who had not spoken during the entire hearing, set down his pen. He picked up his microphone. "Mr. Chairman, I have one question for the witness." Chairman Johnson nodded. "The senator from Arizona is recognized. Share this video with one person. One person who was told this individual fought for the working class." The bipartisan committee said what she did. Father Rodriguez said where she has been. Maria Elena Vasquez said why her store closed. The Bronx is waiting. Share this. The networks will not. Senator Ruben Gallego was 46 years old. He was the son of a Colombian father and a Mexican mother. He had grown up in deep poverty in Chicago. He had earned a scholarship to Harvard. He had enlisted in the United States Marine Corps after college. He had deployed to Iraq with Lima Company, 3rd Battalion, 25th Marines in 2005. He had returned with 23 dead from his unit. He had served 7 terms in the United States House of Representatives. He had been elected to the United States Senate in 2024. He was a Democrat. He was by every metric the authentic version of the story the brand of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had been built upon. He looked at her directly. He spoke without any notes. "Congresswoman, between 2016 and 2018, did Justice Democrats PAC, on whose board you served, transfer approximately $1 million in contributions to Brand New Congress LLC, a limited liability company controlled by Saikat Chakrabarti, who was simultaneously serving as your campaign manager? Yes or no?" 12 seconds of excruciating silence. AOC opened her mouth. She closed it. She opened it again. "Senator, that is a complicated structural question that involves multiple entities and It is not complicated, Congresswoman. The records are public. The FEC filings are public. The board membership is public. Mr. Chakrabarty has confirmed it under federal immunity. Yes or no? It is more complicated than that. Thank you, Congresswoman. That is a yes. Senator Gallego sat back in his chair. He set the microphone down. He did not speak again for the rest of the hearing. The Hispanic Marine combat veteran from Arizona had just confirmed the federal campaign finance irregularity on live camera. The race shield had been incinerated. The Marine shield had been incinerated. The veteran shield had been incinerated. The working class shield had been incinerated. The Democrat shield had been incinerated. Every defensive shield the brand had constructed for 7 years had been dismantled in a single yes or no question from a man who had actually earned every credential she had only claimed. Vance opened the leather notebook to the very back. He pulled out a folded stack of printed pages. He set them deliberately on the table. These are emails, Congresswoman. They were provided to the Federal Election Commission in March of this year by Saikat Chakrabarty in connection with his federal immunity agreement under Title 52, United States Code, Section 30116. They were turned over to this subcommittee under standard cooperation procedures. They are dated March through July 2018. There are 47 of them. I am going to read exactly 2. He read the first email from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to Saikat Chakrabarty, dated the 14th of May 2018, 1047 a.m. Subject line, BNC Consulting. Body Saikat. Can we run the consulting fees through BNC LLC again, like before? Just keep my name off the invoices, okay? Trust you on this. He read the second email from Saikat Chakrabarty to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, dated the 14th of May 2018, 1103 a.m. Reply body already structured. PAC pays the LLC. LLC pays the contractors. Same as January. We are clean as long as we do not put it on paper. He set the pages down. He spoke quietly. That is the entire scheme, Congresswoman. Donor money was collected by Justice Democrats PAC. The PAC paid Brand New Congress LLC for strategic consulting. Brand New Congress LLC was a limited liability company controlled by Mr. Chakrabarty, who was on the board of Justice Democrats and was also running your campaign. He was paying himself. He was paying his vendors. He was paying your campaign expenses. The structure intentionally concealed the campaign PAC affiliation from federal disclosure. The total move through this structure was approximately $1 million. The disclosure violations are severe federal matters. The structure itself, if knowing and willful, is a severe federal matter. The grand jury impaneled in February is reviewing whether the structure was knowing and willful. AOC reached for the water glass. Her hand visibly shook. She completely missed the glass. Her hand struck the phone. The phone slid 4 inches to the left. It teetered on the very edge of the witness desk. It fell. The phone hit the carpeted floor face up. The screen was still on. The C-SPAN 3 camera, on automatic motion zoom, locked onto the screen for 8 crucial seconds. The text from Contact M was clearly visible to the entire country. Stop talking. Evacuate. He has the emails. M. A staffer in the row behind her frantically tried to reach the phone. He could not, because he had been strictly instructed by counsel not to physically interfere with witness materials during active testimony. He froze with his hand awkwardly extended. 8 seconds. The clip would be played on every single cable network by noon. The clip would cross 73 million views on X by midnight. The clip would permanently replace, in the collective memory of the American public, every previous carefully constructed image of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The phone was face up on the floor of Hart, 219. The text was visible. The brand was visible. The handler was visible. The script was visible. The 7 years of authentic working-class outrage had been authored by someone named M, who was telling her in real time to evacuate the room. Vance did not even look at the phone. He reached inside his suit jacket. He slowly pulled out a 4x6 photograph. He had been carrying it inside his breast pocket since 7:37 a.m. He had not shown it to anyone. He had not mentioned it once. He had not signaled its existence. He placed it carefully, face up on the desk in front of him. The C-SPAN tight shot resolved the image clearly. The photograph was black and white. It was old. It had been taken in 1998. It showed an elderly woman in a modest kitchen, holding a yellow plastic bottle of cleaning solution in her left hand and a sponge in her right hand. She was wearing a faded floral housecoat. Her gray hair was pulled back simply. She was looking at the camera with the weary expression of someone who had been cleaning houses for 41 years and was now being asked, for some reason she did not quite understand, to pose for her grandson. Vance did not lift the photograph up. He did not turn it toward the flashing cameras. He simply placed it on the desk where the C-SPAN 3 zoom could see it perfectly. He spoke. "This is Bonnie Vance, my grandmother. We called her Mama. She cleaned houses in Middletown, Ohio, for 41 years. She raised me when my mother could not. She raised my sister. She raised 3 of her own children. She voted for Jimmy Carter in 1976. She voted for Bill Clinton in 1992. She voted for Bill Clinton again in 1996. She voted for Al Gore. She voted for John Kerry. She voted for Barack Obama twice. In 2016, after she watched the National Convention, she called me on the phone. She had not called me on the phone in 11 months. She said, and I am quoting her exactly, because I wrote it down that very night, Jimmy, they do not fight for us anymore. They fight for themselves, and they dress it up. I was 32 years old. I did not fully understand what she meant. He looked piercingly at AOC. I understand now. He took a deep breath. He continued, Mama died in 2005. She was 78 years old. She did not live to see her grandson go to Yale Law School on the GI Bill. She did not live to see what this establishment became. She did not live to see what you became. She voted Democrat her entire adult life because she fundamentally believed the Democratic Party fought for women who cleaned other people's houses. The Democratic Party today fights for women who wear other people's dresses to $35,000 parties. That is an entirely different party, Congresswoman. It is your party. It is not hers. It will not be mine. And the generation standing behind us is watching very closely to decide whose it will ultimately be. The room was completely, utterly still. He looked at her one final time. He delivered the one word, decisive moment. We were both 29. Congresswoman. One of us served. One of us sold. AOC's right hand moved instinctively toward the phone on the floor. She stopped halfway down. Her hand held the air 6 inches above the carpet for 43 agonizing seconds. The lapel microphone caught her shallow breathing. The audio of those exact 43 seconds would be replayed in every political documentary about her career for the next decade. She did not pick up the phone. She simply could not. Vance stood up. It was precisely 953 It was the first time he had stood since 847 that morning. Senator Johnson began to speak. Vance raised his right hand. Johnson stopped. Vance spoke to her directly. He did not speak to the crowded room. He did not speak to the rolling cameras. He spoke only to her. Congresswoman, the federal investigation will proceed. You will retain counsel. You will not be on cable news tonight. You will be answering formal questions at the Department of Justice this afternoon. We are not enemies. We were born 5 years apart. We grew up in the same broken country. Our generation was sold a great many things. I am sorry, it had to be me. He calmly picked up the photograph of Mama. He looked at the image for 2 quiet seconds. He slid it back into his breast pocket. He picked up the leather notebook and the manila folder. He picked up the printed Ethics Committee report. He picked up the stack of printed emails. He placed them all neatly into a brown leather portfolio he had brought with him. He closed the portfolio. He walked out of Hart 219 without looking back once. He did not speak to the gathered press in the hallway. He did not speak to his security detail. He did not look at his phone. He walked from Hart 219 directly to the Capitol subway. He took the subway to the east front of the Capitol. He got into the black SUV that was idling waiting for him. He went directly to the West Wing. He did not return to the public eye for 48 hours. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sat at the witness table for 6 more excruciating minutes. The phone remained face up on the floor. The staffer who had reached for it remained entirely frozen. The C-SPAN cameras remained locked on her. Eventually, Chairman Johnson gave the hearing into official recess. The Capitol Police escorted her quietly out the rear entrance to actively avoid the press. She did not respond to any shouted questions. She did not look at any camera lenses. She did not speak. If you watched a Marine and a brand with 1 photograph and 11 words, hit that like button right now. Comment Bonnie below for Mama. Comment Bronx below for Mrs. Vasquez. Subscribe so you do not miss the federal grand jury updates. Share this with one person who was told for 7 years that this representative fought for working people. She did not. Now everyone knows. By 11:47 a.m., the office of Senator Bernie Sanders had officially released a statement. The statement said in full, "These are extremely serious allegations that demand serious answers. The progressive movement does not protect anyone above strict accountability." Senator Sanders did not mention Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez by name. He did not need to. The brief statement was understood by every political reporter in Washington as the exact moment her closest senior ally cut her completely loose. By 12:30 p.m., the Department of Justice officially confirmed that a federal grand jury had been impaneled in the District of Columbia regarding Justice Democrats PAC and Brand New Congress LLC. AOC's attorney quickly issued a statement confirming his client had been formally served. The statement was exactly 3 sentences long. It notably did not contain the words innocent or deny. By 2:15 p.m., the Sunrise Movement, the climate advocacy organization that had effectively launched AOC's political career, released a brief statement. The statement said in full, "We are reviewing our relationships." That was all. The movement did not say her name either. By 3:30 p.m., the Bronx Democratic County Committee voted to formally withdraw its endorsement of her re-election campaign. The vote was 11-2. The 2 lone dissenting votes were her former campaign chair and her actual cousin. By 4:00 p.m., Saikat Chakrabarti, who had served as her chief of staff for 7 months in 2019, and who was now actively running against Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi for the California 11th District Congressional seat, released a statement through his campaign. The statement said, in full, "I fully cooperated with federal authorities. The record is clear. I have absolutely nothing further to add." His campaign donations spiked 22% in the following 24 hours. By 6:00 p.m., Maria Elena Vasquez declined every single interview request. She walked from Union Station back to the Bronx via the 4 train. She got off at the Cypress Avenue stop and walked back to Westchester Avenue. She passed the boarded-up storefront that had once proudly been Vasquez Mini Market. A small Univision reporter managed to catch up with her on the crowded sidewalk. She stopped momentarily. She spoke softly in Spanish. "I told the truth." He listened. "That is all." She walked into her apartment building. She did not appear in the news cycle again. By 9:00 p.m., two different Democratic House members announced official primary challenges to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for the New York 14th District. Both were Hispanic. Both were younger than her. Both had genuinely grown up in the Bronx. Neither had attended Boston University. Neither had worked as a bartender. Both were fiercely running on the identical slogan, "The Bronx deserves much better." One was a devout Catholic. One was a Marine veteran. By 11:30 p.m., the raw video clip of the M-text on the phone face-up on the witness desk had officially crossed 73 million views on X. The video clip of Vance placing the photograph of Mama on the desk had crossed 41 million views. The video clip of the one-word decisive moment had crossed 92 million views. The phrase, "One of us served, one of us sold," was already being rapidly printed on T-shirts by Tuesday at midnight. By Wednesday at 6:00 a.m., Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez still had not made a single public statement. Her social media accounts had been completely dark for 16 long hours. It was the longest silence of her entire career. The Capitol police officer who had stood vigilantly at the back of Hart 219 was never publicly identified. The anonymous threat call that morning had been directed at the vice president. The threat had not come from any source connected to the witness. The officer had explicitly volunteered for the tense assignment because his older brother had served directly with Vance in Iraq in 2005. Vance never knew. The officer went home that night, took off his heavy uniform, sat at his quiet kitchen table, and said exactly one thing to his wife. He said he stood the entire time he had to, and he sat the rest. His wife did not ask what he meant. Father Miguel Rodriguez offered a special mass that evening at St. Anthony of Padua for the truth-tellers and the struggling working families of the South Bronx. 144 people attended. Many were not Catholic. Most were not white. All were absolutely silent through the homily. The collection plate that night raised $4,200 for the parish food pantry. The pantry would feed 1,100 families that week, just as it had every single week for 9 long years. The Vice President of the United States did not give a victory interview that night. He did not give an interview the following day. He did not appear on any cable news program. He did not tweet. He did not post on any social platform. He did not make a grand statement. He simply returned to his residence at the Naval Observatory at 8:47 p.m. Tuesday evening. He had a quiet dinner with his wife, Usha, and their 3 children. He read his daughter a bedtime story. He attended Mass at the Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle on Wednesday morning. He went to work. He did his job. He did not speak publicly about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ever again. For 7 years, the political apparatus had told a generation that they were bravely fighting the billionaires. On a quiet Tuesday in April, in a grand hearing room in the Senate Hart Building, a Marine put a simple photograph of an old woman with a sponge on a desk and asked them to look at one actual person who had cleaned the houses of the rich for 41 years. They did not have an answer. America saw it all. And the generation she had sold, the generation that had paid the soaring utility bills, the generation that had been aggressively told the world would end in 12 years, the generation that had watched the bartender slowly become the brand, the generation that had received a 41% electricity bill increase instead of a Green New Deal, the generation that had finally seen on Tuesday, April 14th, at 9:53 a.m. Eastern exactly who the brand was truly working for, finally stopped buying. The reckoning was completely complete. The Marine had gone home. Subscribe to this channel right now. We will closely cover what happens next: the federal grand jury, the aggressive primary challengers, the bipartisan ethics violations, the Bronx that faithfully voted for her 3 times, the mama who reliably voted for the party until she finally did not. Year 7. The world is still here. The receipts are fully in, and the Marine is absolutely not done. Hit the like button if you stayed with us this far. Comment served below if you are standing with the Marine. Share this vital video with one person who desperately needs to see what happens when a carefully constructed brand finally meets the undeniable truth. The full hearing is on the public record, but what you just witnessed will be heavily cemented in the history books. The brand is finished. The reckoning has begun. But as the dust settles on Hart 219 and a political empire collapses overnight, we have to ask ourselves, who will the establishment try to sell us next?